Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video, gonna do a review of the Wolfburn Northland, and while I'm at it, I'm gonna do a comparison with the Wolfburn Morven, which I already reviewed. But before I get into this, let me tell you about the brief history of Wolfburn Distillery. Wolfburn Distillery is the most northerly whiskey distillery on the Scottish mainland. The new Wolfburn Distillery is located approximately 350 meters from the site of the old Wolfburn Distillery, and it draws its water from the Wolfburn, or Wolf Stream, where it gets its name. In 1821, the original Wolfburn Distillery was founded just to the west of the town of Thurso, Caithness, by William Smith. In 1877, the original Wolfburn Distillery was closed. In 2012, a private consortium gained approval from the Caithness planning authorities to build a new Wolfburn Distillery in Henderson Park in Thurso. In 2013, the new Wolfburn Distillery was opened. In February 2016, the new Wolfburn Distillery commenced bottling operations in a purpose-built on-site bottling facility. The inaugural whiskey was launched globally in March 2016 and has gone on to win several gold medal awards in international competitions. The reinvented Wolfburn site consists of 4 buildings, the distillery itself, and 3 warehouses for the laying down of casks. Global fabricators Forsyth were contracted to install the distillery plant and equipment. The Wolfburn Northland Single Malt Scotch Whisky. It was matured and bottled on site. Northland represents the first chapter in this history of Wolfburn. It is lightly peated. It's a non-age statement, but probably around 3 years old. It's non-chill filtered, has natural color. It's bottled at 46% alcohol by volume and sells for anywhere between $77 and $100. So sort of an interesting history there. Wolfburn is a new distillery, and yet it's sort of, at least in namesake, a revival or resurrection of a distillery that previously existed. Fairly new distillery then, although with a sort of ancient past. There is now a 10-year-old, and the distillery's now been around for 10 years. There's a 10-year-old out there in the market, but I have not seen it. So, the Morven is labeled lightly peated. The Northland doesn't say anything on here about being peated. Nothing in there. It just says handcrafted, whatever that means. Now, Wolfburn is a craft distillery, and it's sort of a nebulous and non-legal term. Basically, it means it's not owned by a big conglomerate. You know, it's quality over quantity. It's gonna geared more towards the aficionado, the fan, rather than mass market. This isn't something you're going to see in all your grocery stores and so forth. All right. Did a whole live stream with Daniel Whittington, which we discussed craft distilleries. You should check that out on the discussion. I had like at least 10 different criteria that I made a distinction as to what craft distillery is. Now, with the Morven, what I said in that review, and I'll put a link to it at the end of this video if you want to check that out, is that it's a young whiskey. Both of these are probably under 4 years old. It's a young whiskey, but they mask that youth fairly well, I think, using the peat. Now, on the palate, there is that sort of youth sharpness to it. Aging a whiskey adds things, takes away things, and transforms things. It transforms the spirit so that even though it has a high ABV or so forth, or whatever, the edges, and this is phenomenological way of describing a whiskey. It's not like it actually has an edge, like a shelf, but it sort of removes some of the bite, some of the sharpness of a spirit, so that it has a round feel to it. Alcohol can also have a warmth. There can be actual bite of the alcohol, just the fact that you've got a high ABV. And there can also be a bite that comes from the spice of the spirit, depending on what kind of grain they used as well. Say if it was made with a rye, you get a bit of a spice bite. So you get 3 different types of bite: youth, high alcohol, and spice. They've done a really good job with the Morven. The peat integrates enough to sort of mask some of those youth characteristics. So what I don't get is the aspartame, sugar, fake sugar characteristics, that sort of new makey character. One of the most important things you can do in learning about whiskey is actually taste some new make, so you have a baseline to understand what age does, what maturation does to a whiskey. And they've done a really good job of mitigating some of that and be able to release a young whiskey, but it's not overly sharp and offensive. They call this lightly peated. It's more of a moderate to medium plus. Whatever ppms you start off with, pre-fermentation and distillation, is completely relative. You can have 2 whiskeys at 55 ppm, and one will be heavier than the other depending on how you do the cuts and depending how much you age, because age will also reduce the impact of the peat. So there's a number of different things you can do to reduce the ppms, at least the perception of it after it's been bottled. Now this they call just handcrafted, and no indication that it's been peated, and yet, I know I tasted this one first, and yet, it's got a smokiness to it. It's got a peatiness to in the background. Not as much as the Morven, but the Northland is lightly peated. Personally, if you compare this to say Ardbeg 10, this is the Northland is actually a lightly peated, and the Morven is actually a moderately peated rather than a lightly peated. Now, what do I think about the quality of the whiskeys? You can tell that it's a quality spirit, that it's well made. On this, the Northland, I get tropical notes, I get pineapple, a little bit of banana, apple and pear, a little bit of lemon, some vanilla, and then that smoke peat shows up mostly on the finish, slightly ashy. I would like the Northland to go back into the cask. For me, it's too young. Even if they've mitigated the extreme youth characteristics, that it doesn't have the powdered sugar and all that, it's still, it could be better just put it back in the cask. The lightly peated Morven, I think, gets away with it. It gets away with it. That they've done enough, because it has a heavier peat character to it, to counterbalance and sort of mask the youthfulness of the whiskey. So what I'm going to give the Northland in terms of a score, it's hard to score it because it's a young distillery. They have to get something out on the market. They have to have some cash flow coming in. I would rather that they would wait, but if they can't afford to do it, they got to put something out there. And whiskey geeks, want to jump on something new in the market and see what the distillery is like. But if you can get a 10-year-old, grab a 10-year-old. I'll go solid 87 points. If you wanted to get it higher, you need to put it back in the cask. Probably needs at least another 5 years to get more of an integration of the smoke character into the spirit, and just more development to it. The Morven, lightly peated, which is actually more of a moderately peated, it's good as it is, but it would be better with more age. It'd be better with more age. Now, what about the cost factor? Anywhere between $77 and $100 for the Northland. Would I rather have this or an Ardbeg 10 that I can get for 65 bucks. Used to get Ardbeg 10 for $46 years back. Now it's 65. Our neighbors to the north in Canada, they pay a lot more. So, but in my neighborhood, 65 bucks. If I'm just looking for a peated whiskey that's rich, it's got some age to it, it's nice, developed, that I'm just really, really gonna love, I'm gonna go for the Ardbeg 10. There's no way in hell this Northland can compete with an Ardbeg 10-year-old from Islay. It's just a far superior whiskey. An Ardbeg 10, I just finished my 6th bottle of the Ardbeg 10. You know, all of them over 90 points, all over 90 points. And, you know, I'm gonna save myself $15, $20 on the bottle. But if you are a whiskey student and you wanna, find out what Wolfburn is all about, what it's like, and what it potentially has coming down the road, it checks all the boxes: natural filter, natural color. I like that peat. I like that it's standing out as a Highland peated whiskey. I like all that. Then go ahead and go for it. All right, if you've not yet subscribed, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe and ring the bell to be notified for when I go live or post a new video. And until next time, sláinte. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.